of Claude Levi Strauss, a French anthropologist and ethnologist, is structuralist anthropology. So he has connected structuralism with anthropology. Anthropology is the study of human race. So he is interested, unlike Ferdinand de Saussure, who is more interested to study the connection between language and structure. Here he is interested, Claude Levi Strauss is interested to explore the structure of anthropology. So he comes across cultural similarity. So he comes up with a very important finding, a very relevant finding, that people are different in terms of culture, as the cultural practices keep on varying from place to place. The India's culture is not the same as it is in the US or in the European countries, but still he finds, or he tries to bring out, a cultural similarity underlying the universal pattern, or contributing a universal pattern for all structures, and he tries to associate it with structuralism. So in this way, he tries to apply the structuralism with that of myth, interpretation of the myth. What is myth? A myth is a traditional story involving religion or any culture for that matter. So for Claude Levi Strauss, myths are the building blocks behind each society. He has valued the dominance and predominance of myths in every society, and he has brought out a structuralist approach to anthropology. And here again, as we have seen when we analyze the contributions of Ferdinand de Saussure, the role played by Perrault and Lang, here also brings out this connection between Perrault and Lang in his structuralist anthropology. He says that the individual tale is a Perrault, which may not have a separate meaning, but this individual tale or Perrault can be understood only by considering its position in the whole cycle, and that is the Lang. The next important concept is moving from particular to general. So what is the relevance of moving from particular to general? An individual work is a particular work, and when this individual work is placed within the structural context, it becomes general, and this is the typical structuralist way of understanding meanings. So even the particular aspects, when they are generalized through the process of structuralism, it becomes a structuralist way of understanding. So in the structuralist way of understanding, always prefer moving from particular to general way of comprehension or way of analyzing the structures. And next important contribution made by Claude Levi Strauss is the bricolage, and here as well bricolage is trying to create something new. Yes, this also explains the concept that the existing signs are used in such a way that it cannot be as if it doesn't borrow anything from the previous concept. And this is what happens with myth and mythology. The study of myth is mythology. So in short, Claude Levi Strauss has contributed much to the field of structuralist anthropology, and his contribution to structuralism is closely connected with myth and mythology. And the things that you have to remember about his contribution include myths, then the individual tale or Perrault, then the whole cycle of myth or Lang, then the particular to the general way of understanding meanings, and bricolage. Next important thinker that comes under the discussion of structuralism is Roland Barthes. Roland Barthes, he became very popular with the publication of mythologies in 1957, and it is a detailed anthropological study on the culture of France. He applied a structuralist method to the field of modern culture, and he also highlighted the significance of language in writing. And his introduction to the structural analysis of narrative is concerned with finding a correspondence or similarity between the structure of a sentence and the larger narrative. And this is how he tries to establish how structure determines the system and vice versa, and how the system determines the structure. Um, Roland Barthes, though he began his writings, or he began his observations along the lines of structuralism, it is very interesting to note that gradually he moves from a structuralist to post-structuralist by coining the very important idea like death of the author and birth of the reader. What is this death of the author? Yes, according to him, a work is not an independent reality. The author should not be prioritized and privileged. He rejected the author's presence in a literary text. He never wants to consider or view author as the center of the literary text. And he never accepts the idea that the writing is the self-expression of the author. And as such, he gave more importance to the reader. So when he declares that the author is dead, the reader is born. And this is one of the major contribution of Roland Barthes, and this also marks the literal journey from structuralism to post-structuralism. Next comes the structuralist and narratology. So Roland Barthes and Svetlana Todorov. So Todorov coined the term narratology and structuralist narratology. We have seen Claude Levi Strauss, how he connected structuralist anthropology, and here we have the structuralist narratology being propounded by Svetlana Todorov. So here as well, Todorov makes use of Lang and parole. Lang refers to the story's meaning. Narratology, it's the way how we connect the meaning of the story, or how we analyze the story's meaning, how it develops from the overall structure rather than from the individual single tale. The individual single tale is called the parole. So parole is, of course, it is given preference, but when the individual tale develops, it becomes a more generalized one, and it contributes to the overall structure. We call it as Lang, and this is the basis of structuralist narratology. And here we can see the different kinds of two major kinds of narrative. One is the horizontal narrative, also called as linear narrative, which is not very complicated. It is very simple by nature, and there is another term for this horizontal or linear narrative, that is syntagmatic studies. And next we have the vertical narrative, which is little more complex, and it needs a thorough study to trace out the true meaning, and we call vertical narrative as paradigmatic studies because it involves a complicated procedure involving codes and conventions. And binary oppositions here as well. So in the earlier slide, we have discussed about the binaries. We have seen the subject, object, then nature, culture, and various other examples. And here, when these two binary concepts, when they try to, of course, we know that they are the opposites. When one is passive, the other is active. When one is privileged, the other is not much privileged. So definitely an opposition takes place, and we call this opposition as the binary oppositions, resulting from the placing of two aspects and in two varying degrees. So according to structuralism, the binary oppositions regulate the whole system, and so it is based on these binary oppositions a text is valued. And the structuralists, they tend to uncover the binary oppositions that determine the text. Then structuralist critics and the text. So here we have the major functions of the structuralist is to analyze the prose narratives, then to relate the text to the larger containing structure, that is how they convert an individual tale or an individual text into the larger text. In that sense, they create a larger network of intertextual connections. They connect it with the universal narrative structure, then recurrent patterns, then they try to interpret the the text with the underlying structure of the language. So this is very important because the text is interpreted on the basis of the structure of language. Then the concept. They also try to apply the concept of systematic patterning and structuring to the text. And here we have the structuralist narratology, systematized the study of plot, characters, and symbols to identify the play of language that attributes meaning to it. We have a person, a literary scholar by the name A.J. Gremas, one of the early practitioners of structuralist narratology. He was influenced by Ferdinand de Saussure, and he actually coined, or he contributed to another branch of structuralism called structuralist semiotics. And these are my final reflections on structuralism. I hope that you have at least gained a basic knowledge of structuralism. What is structuralism, the origin of structuralism, the key names of the literary scholars that you have to keep in mind when you think about structuralism, their valuable contributions to the world of structuralism. So with this notion, you will get a sound understanding about structuralism. So thank you for your patient listening. Thank you so much.